Guys, I'm pissed. I can't hide it. I'm really mad right now. And I know we're going to get Yankees fans in here, rightfully so, talking all the smack in the world. And the thing is, we have to take it. This was a 3-game set against the New York Yankees there in the Bronx for the first of 2 Subway Series on the season. And all the Mets need to do was at least stay in these ball games. But they lose embarrassingly there thanks to a lack of offense. Yet again, no runners in scoring position there in Game 1. Game 2, the Mets have themselves a big victory, but it's a nail-biting victory. That 1 run was a differential. Today, the New York Yankees absolutely blow their doors open on Ryan Stanek, Genesis Cabrera, and you mean to tell me that Pete Alonso is the focal point behind how this all unraveled? Yes, that's true. Yes, I'm beyond pissed off about it. Is it the end of the world? No, but naturally, we're going to have a discussion here. Wardy's a little hot-headed to begin this conversation. I apologize, but I have a lot to say. The emotions are fresh. The ball game just ended, and the Mets dropped 2 games out of 3 against the New York Yankees this time by a whopping final score here of 8-2. So many unearned runs in this ball game. 5 or 6? Are you kidding me? What is with the lack of fundamental baseball with this team? It's Mark Vientos again at third, then it's Pete Alonso. Like, what are you doing, Pete? I just don't understand. He had all the time. It's the fact that Alonso had time. He planted his feet. It wasn't like this was a situation where he was sprinting and on the run, had to make the throw. No, he had enough time. Just look at the effing plate. I understand these things happen. You're not going to be perfect as a player, and Alonso has been our saving grace in a lot of ways so far this season, so this is nothing personal on Pete. But that completely unraveled this thing. But let's not just start there. We have to start from the beginning of this ball game. What was the commonality yet again that we saw in this ball game? A lack of situational hitting. If you were not named Jeff McNeil, you did absolutely nothing positive on the offensive end today, with the exception of Luis Angel Acuna bolting and getting on first there, thanks to just it being a speed demon. Outside that, the Mets had little to nothing going offensively. When they had guys on base, they were not scoring. Another outing where there were 1 for 7 at minimum with runners in scoring position in this one, and I feel like I'm going to get a side sticker just because how aggravated I am about this. Greg with a $5 holla. Thank you so much for that, Greg. Great member of the chat. Says, last 17 games, 8-9. Could lose first place as early as tomorrow night. Pretty mediocre at the moment. Yeah, I know. The past 20 games, the Mets have pretty much been a 500 ball club. And it's not the end of the world, and it certainly is encouraging that at least the team that's nippy on the heels of the Phillies just lost their star closer, Jose Alvarado, for 80 games and playoffs, should they make playoffs this year. So I'm not complaining about that, but what I am complaining about is the fact that the Mets had a golden opportunity to stroll in there in the Bronx, this time with the actual Yankees, you could argue for the first time ever, feeling like they're almost playing with a little bit of house money, even at Yankee Stadium. Because the talk of the town wasn't about Aaron Judge. The talk of the town wasn't necessarily Max Fried heading into this series. It was Juan Soto, obviously, for all the endless reasons. And ESPN did a fantastic job on having, yet again, a horrendous broadcast, and that goes in direct hand as to why MLB and ESPN are parting ways after this season, folks, whose Buster Olney, the schmuck that he is, tried pregame to, in fact, not only have Juan Soto mic'd up, but to ask him specific questions about Aaron Judge and how great of a season Aaron Judge is having so far this year. We all know the debate's there, but I appreciate the fact that it blew up so much because he's as idiotic as he is and needs the clicks because no one gives a rat's ass about him otherwise. And they actually went with Brandon Nimmo in the ballgame to have the guy mic'd up. So I appreciate that heading into this one, and I was hoping, just hoping, that we could get a Juan Soto 2-hit game. Could we get something other than him getting his ass to first base with a walk 3 times? Again, Game 1 was awesome. Got on base 3 or 4 times. Game 2 yesterday, got on base once or twice, a single and a walk. Today, nada. And he struck out back-to-back times. And what I will give credit to, that being in Max Fried, he's a stellar ace. We know this. We know this very well as Mets fans. Fried is a stud when he's really on as a southpaw. But in a game where David Peterson had a better final line than Max Fried, you mean to tell me that Juan Soto in his final 2 at-bats against the same Max Fried strikes out on that same bottom pitch there, the beautiful breaking ball and then the sinker. Soto doesn't know what he's looking at. He looks 2-3 steps behind. He has a check swing for a ground out that he doesn't hustle out, so everyone, including myself, is thinking, Juan, you're not in San Diego anymore. I don't know why you're getting so heavily influenced by Manny Machado. Can we stop about the lack of hustle, please. I don't care if it's a slow roller a foot in front of you or if it's a 110 off the bat that's smoked on the ground. Absolutely run it out. Why aren't you doing that? And again, I understand this is going to happen with a guy like Juan Soto. He has a big payday already. Last thing he's going to try to do is overextend himself the way he typically does. But listen, you're paid the big bucks for a reason. We expect you at minimum to give your maximum effort every time out there. So that didn't help either, and that fit into the certain Yankee narrative. And like I said, we're going to have probably a decent chunk of either Yanks fans in the chat today in the comments down below ragging, but we just have to take it as Mets fans. And that's the one thing I will say, as much as I love to sling the crap all day long, and especially since the Mets landed Soto, we have to take it when things don't go in our favor. And the Mets were not the better team in this 3-game set. You simply can't say that. I mean, the fact that the Mets allowed Clark Schmidt to do what he did against this Mets team because the offense yet again was not producing enough was a big problem. So we got a lot to get into in this one, everybody. Your guy Wardy's pissed off, and that's an understatement. JV, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. I have been defending Alvarez for years now. Don't you think it's fair to declare El Troll a bust? You can't call a player this early in his career a bust, in my opinion, when he was a heralded prospect at the young age of 17 of a big IFA signing. We can call him a bust if he finds himself 25, 26, 27, and is not even, say, a major league caliber catcher. Alvarez is, but Alvarez is going to fluctuate with the offense. Today, he was completely outmatched. He wasn't the only guy that was outmatched today, but he also had a defensive blunder that didn't help the Mets either. The Mets defensively, again, a laughingstock. And what frustrates me most about this, and JV, again, thank you for the donation, guys. We're going to break down this entire ball game in just the next couple minutes, everybody. I don't know a specific time when we'll start doing it, but we're going to break everything down, innings 1 through 9, and all the details in this matchup. The key players spotlight on David Peterson, who had a strong final line. I get it, he walked 4 batters, but Peterson gave up 1 run technically, and Fried gave up 2, because the other run was because of Vientos' boneheaded error early on. And that's nothing personal against Mark. I love him, but as a Mets fan, the initial reaction is, what are we doing there? Bobbling the ball at third the way that he does makes us all wonder, it would have been nice if Brett Beatty maybe started this ball game for a change, because DH is right there. I get it, Marte had an opposite field double, but what do you effing do when you do nothing with it? Marte had nothing else to show besides that. Why not start Beatty at third? I get it. The simple answer is, guys, Wardy, you dummy, he has horrendous numbers against lefties. Why even put him in there? But my simple response is, why not? It's still a small sample size, and if his defense is as good as it is, the best defense the Mets have had since David Wright, and David Wright was not this all-star third baseman defensively. He was an all-star third baseman as a well-rounded player, but he was not this dynamo consistently on the defensive end. If you look at his metrics, they're not going to be in his favor as much as you think. Brett Beatty has a lot of defensive upside, and this is the best we're seeing since still a guy like Wright. And you mean to tell me that you just can't put him in at least once against a lefty? Maybe it's because Max Fried is an absolute stud, and okay, I understand it to a degree, but still, when defense is continuing to cost the Mets game by game, run by run, you need to make a decision, Carlos Mendoza, and this yet again costed the Mets early on, and for a large portion of this ballgame, it felt like that this could be a 1-run differential. And if it wasn't for Pete Alonso's absolute Lucas Studo moment throwing at first base, who knows what happens there at that 8th inning? Maybe they get that second out, and maybe they get another quick out, and that's that, and Ryan Stick gets out of the mess without even having to utilize Genesis Cabrera. But instead, it doesn't happen. The bases get juiced. Cody Belly bomb out here. Grand salami. Sayonara. Q Sinatra. Yankees fans are happy. Mets fans are depressing. And we're back at it now with our latest New York Metropolitan post-game show here presented by SeatGeek and BetUS, everybody. Thank you all so much for chiming in. Let me get to some donations here real quick, and then we'll break down this ball game. Shout out all my members, too, that I see. Juan Diaz, great member. Jennifer, Dave Kaplitz, Daniel Caps, Mad Team Parents. Brandon, Juan, how we doing going up the list here? Well, Big Frank, Dave, how we doing? Frank V, great member. Juliet Hawkins, great member. KCB, great member. Let's see, we're just follower in general. CD, how we doing? Hacks, Rob Mars, Frank V, Ascend, Alvin, Mista, Lordy, Joe, going up the list here. Kevin Kane. All right, guys, let's get to these donations, and then let's see what we have to do from there. Kevin Kane with the $20 holla states the following. Many Starling Marte, no, Mark is a DH and Beatty is third base defense. I tend to agree with you. I think we are in unison on that front, my man. ESPN couldn't get Soto's nuts out of their mouths. You're not wrong. Wow, color me shocked. ESPN with one of the only games that they're going to have to cover for the Subway Series all year long, knowing that's going to be their highest ratings for baseball all year long, because otherwise no one gives a rat's ass. You mean to tell me that they're going to gargle, of course, everything going on with Juan Soto? Who could have saw this coming? The same exact thing applies with Aaron Judge, yet here we are wondering, why wasn't Aaron Judge's horrendous day at the plate yesterday at all emphasized. It's kind of crazy how, you barely heard that at all outside of maybe one or two mentioned into this entire broadcast. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? And we see Juan Soto chants after a grand slam, his peak Yankees, only 14 more years of crying about it, 100%. And listen, it's going to continue. I know that. I'm not going to go on the spiel about how I feel about Yankees fans with their treatment of Soto. I've done that already. And honestly, I am not in a current position that I can continue to talk smack because, listen, Soto isn't walking the walk the way we need him to early on this season. And the Yankees just kicked our teeth in 2 games out of 3. We have to take it on the chin. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have what many deem as either a little brother mentality, just being kind of, a little bit of a prissy pants when there's no need to be. I'm mad. I'm pissed off. I'm more bothered by the fact that, one, my team did not perform nearly as well in their biggest series yet this season. One, you knew it was a big match for New York baseball. Right after you made a massive signing in Soto to potentially change the dynamic in New York baseball forever. And while I still believe that to hold true, this was not a great early showing between the two sides. Then you mean to tell me that not only is this on the national stage, but the Mets have this just continued lack of runner and scoring position approach that no matter who they're playing, that has stayed the same. And thirdly, and most frustratingly, you have national broadcasts for the Mets set up terribly here between ESPN, obviously, and what we saw even in the victory yesterday. I'm not complaining as much about that, but for this to be on ESPN, out of all things, when you know how Yankees fans are, and this is the fuel of their fire, because we know this, because we do this back and forth constantly on social media. Man, does this suck. That's all I got to say about it. It's not the end of the world, but it sucks really bad right now. And all I can say is I'm grateful that I at least don't currently reside in New York, because otherwise I'd have to hear it from not only my Yankee fan buddies. Pat, you know exactly who you are. He's acting like a cocky mofo, I bet, right now. And everyone else there in New York, obviously. So I commend everybody. So all my New York Met fans out there that reside in New York, that have a lot of Yankee fans, friends, family, you're going to have to take it for the next week plus, and there's nothing else we can do about it. It is what is. CD with the $5 holla. I think Soto will have the same underwhelming first year Ed Beltran had, similar to Lindor as well. I think he'll be up and down all year. He doesn't look like he's having fun. He doesn't look like he's having too much fun yet at all. I mean, Soto hasn't showed his person. Here's my take. Soto has shown more personality when he was in spring training than since the season has started. I think Soto looked 10 times more comfortable in spring training, was loosey-goosey, having fun in the clubhouse on the field, whereas what we're getting right now isn't the exact same thing, everybody. Let me just double check this. Ooh, I got to make sure that this puppy doesn't die on me. My mic that I currently have connected, everybody. So bear with me 1 second as I see if I have something else around to plug it in, because I just don't want it to die on you guys midway through the show here. But you know what? That is a possibility of happening here. So let's see what Wardy can try to figure out and do in the next couple seconds. Do 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 do. And I think I figured it out. I think I can. Or I think I can. Hold on. Let's see. I want to say I can. No. This is going to need to go. Okay, guys. We're just going to roll with it, and hopefully it doesn't die while we're live. And if it does die while we're live, then we'll go to audio option number 2. So we'll just see how long we roll here. But CD, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. And again, the exact same thing. I just feel like we've seen more personality out of Soto in the early goings in spring training versus what we're getting right now is not exactly the same product. He doesn't look as comfortable, and obviously he's pressing a bit. He's pulling, and his bat speed has been behind. That is something that we can emphasize a bit more right now. Not that's the end of the world, but it is certainly behind versus last season. And that half swing, check swing that he made, that was for that really soft ground out that he didn't hustle at all until he realized how it was mishandled by DJ LeMahieu. That was a prime example of kind of where he has been missing pitches and also not having the speed that we otherwise are known for seeing. Because when I see Juan Soto at the plate, I don't know about you guys, but I see a guy that dominates right away. I see a guy that goes right up there and knows exactly how he's going to command that strike zone, is feeling more cocky, more confident than the umpire himself, and we didn't see that too much in the series outside of game 1 where he got his walks. KC, thank you for the donation. KC says, this week, 7 for 46 for runners in scoring position. Horrendous. We've been calling this out since the season started, everybody. 12 runs, 35 hits, out hit by Pirates. How does Chavez survive? Last year was JD Lindor. Chavez admitted didn't do enough. Now, same thing this year. You're 100% right, and I'm glad that you brought up that because there was a piece that came out this past month or so that emphasized Eric Chavez reflecting on this past season. And now there was specific quotes on basically how Lindor put Chavez in check and reminded him as to what his role is and what he needs to be doing pretty much. Chavez didn't take that as an insult. He just took that as a rightfully, constructive criticism and feels that he learned from that and obviously building off that. But the problem is when the Mets have these same boneheaded continuation of lack of hitting with runners in scoring position, it doesn't matter how quality of a lineup you're going to have 1 through 9 if you cannot hit in the clutch, right? And Alonso obviously has cooled off a little bit. We've seen Lindor cool off. Soto we thought was heating up, but that only lasted not even a week or so, so that really cooled off, obviously. A lot of these Mets batters are in a little bit of a slump at the moment, paired with bad fundamental baseball on the defensive end, paired with frustration now on the bullpen end where you're not getting as much consistency as you're hoping for. Give credit where credit's due. The New York Yankees are a very talented and very good team. This is not like the Mets bested themselves entirely this game, but at the same time, when you give up 5 or 6 unearned runs, it does kind of fall on the Mets more than it does on the Yankees' talents, does it not? So let's get into this. Casey, thank you for the donation. Dave, thank you for the $5 holly. He said, Pete can't throw, and 1 OR with the Mets going to fire Chavez and Barnes. We're continuing that discussion right now. Let's see in the chat here. Juan Diaz, thank you for the $5 holly. Wish the Mets had a manager like Lou Piniella. He would be getting into Soto's face. It's unacceptable. We need a lineup shuffle or a trade. And lineup shuffle-wise, that's where a guy like Luis Robert comes into play, but he's coming with his sub-200 batting average right now, so I don't know how much of an immediate impact that'll do on the offensive end, especially with runners in scoring position trying to be clutch. Robert doesn't really know that all that much, sadly, because he's with Southside Chicago and the White Sox. But when we talk about all the other aspects, especially on the Soto front and Piniella, listen, Carlos Mendoza, I think, is a brilliant manager. And when it comes to Soto, I don't think that you should be grilling him too hard, but I think you should definitely remind him. And just, he knows, obviously, but you got to remind him and be like, listen, that isn't okay. Regardless of how much you're making, you need to be hustling it every single time out there. And I will have that mentality personally as a fan for anybody in the lineup. It doesn't matter if you're on a $765 million contract or if you're making $765,000 that same season. You're on the same team. You're equal as one, so you should be treated the same as everybody else. That should not be deserving of a special treatment type of situation at all. I hope that isn't the case. Shout out Cody Bellinger. Pat, I appreciate the fact that it wasn't much worse than that as your comment. So thank you for that. Enjoy your weekend or the rest of your weekend, even though it's about done. Some people are saying fire sale in the chat. I don't know what you're smoking, but it's got to be that good. Because, guys, we're still over 10 games above 500. How about you pump the brakes? I'm pissed off, too. But listen, there's a difference between being pissed off in the moment and having your initial, maybe irrational emotions, get the best of you, and also firmly just wanting to ride the coattails of the Mets now not performing well to buy into your natural pessimism that you have, regardless on how the team performs, and then try to make it out to be like, oh, okay, we need to make drastic changes. No, you don't watch the Mets clearly. You have no clue as to what's going on with them right now. They have a core that is absolutely in a win-now situation, and a fantastic core at that. They just need to continue to build along with it, make some proper moves by the deadline, nothing drastic, and hopefully have themselves a deep run with Juan Soto, fingers crossed, helping lead the way on that front. Final thing before we get on to breaking down this ball game, Rocket Man with the $5 holla. God, today's loss stung. Lindor may have to have a meeting again. Beatty might have a job at third base. Yeah, I'm sorry, but as long as Beatty's on this roster, he needs to be the predominant third baseman for the defensive reasons right now. It's costing the Mets too much. And this is nothing personal or slight on Mark. It's just the reality. You're costing the team runs right now, and you're not providing enough of that offensive oomph that you did consistently last season to say, hey, that it's balancing out. It isn't right now. The defense is sticking out like a sore thumb, and Lindor can get away with it a little bit more because Lindor has been off to a really, really good start this season, all things considered. Mark has fluctuated a lot with his offense. The past 2.5 weeks have been much better, but it still goes without saying he needs to obviously work more on that defense. And the time being, you need to maximize what your offensive and defensive output is. And that means by having Vientos at DH when facing left-handed pitching especially, and have Brett Beatty there at third base, regardless of the handedness of the starter. You have to give him consistent reps, or else he's never going to be anything beyond a platoon player for this Mets team because you're going to hinder his development. All right, guys. Without further ado, let's break this one down. Shout out to our friends at SeatGeek that make things happen. As always, guys, Thanks to you guys, SeatGeek is now the official ticketing sponsor here for WardyNYM throughout the entire course of the 162. And as a further thank you guys for having them join us, because you guys have been utilizing the promo code so much, we still got the promo code for you. Make sure you utilize Wardy10 down below for your next SeatGeek purchase. Doesn't need to be your first purchase, just your next purchase. So if you've been utilizing them for years, you can utilize them again here, and you'll get 10% off your next ticket purchase for Mets tickets, comedy show tickets, New York Knicks playoff tickets if you really want to lock in for the Eastern Conference Finals, whatever you need on the ticketing front. SeatGeek has you covered. They have over 70,000 active events to choose from, making them the #1 rated ticketing app in the game today. So waste no more time. Click that link down below in the description, and thank you so much in advance. All right, guys, without further ado, let's break down this ball game. Let's see just how frustrated Wardy can get again from starting this thing from down all the way up, from first inning to last. As we see here, everybody, we got Mr. Francisco Lindor, and he flies out right away, and that is how this ball game gets started. After Lindor flies out, we see Juan Soto then fly out, and that does it. Oh, then we see the polar bear, everybody, and right away, you know what really sucks, everybody, about the beginning of this ball game? It's not just the fact that Juan Soto flew out, but it's the fact that It's the fact that Pete Alonso flew out when he had a baseball that absolutely would have more than likely been out at Yes City Field. In case you guys don't believe me, let's take a look further at this exact contact by Pete Alonso, because when we do exactly that, everybody, we see, yes, the following. 400, just absurd, 343 feet, 110 miles per hour off the bat, and a 45-degree launch angle, yet it somehow, some way, just completely died that we saw there on the warning track. Wardy, the lowlights, what are we talking about? Let me know in the chat. Again, guys, thank you so much for smashing like and subscribe on as you chime in as we're breaking down the latest frustrating series loss for the Amazons, losing by a final score here of 8-2. Brennan, I missed your $2 haul. Let me see if I can go find it. What the F was that? I'm pissed too, Brennan. Thank you so much for that donation. Yeah, I'm really mad about it. That's how I started the show here. I'm getting the PTSD flashbacks of 2015 Lucas Duda, and they're just merging right now, you know, side by side with from Lucas Duda to Pete Alonso in a 1, and I'm really not having a good time right now. I got to be honest with you guys. But let's break down this ball game, because after that Alonso fly out that felt like it was going to be a home run left to begin this ball game, it sadly was anything but. As we continue on in this one, everybody, in this matchup where the Yankees go on to win by a final score of 8-2, we see the ball game kickstart for David Peterson. Not so great, as literally the first batter he faces, that being Paul Goldschmidt in leadoff, gets on base because Mark Vientos bobbles a routine play at third base, and that allows Goldie on. So right away, there is your leadoff runner on for the New York Yankees. Trent Grisham thankfully flies out, but then we see Aaron Judge hit himself a ground rule double to set up runners at second and third then, with less than 2 out. And who comes to produce here for the Yankees? A guy that nipped the Mets in the butt so far this series and absolutely torched them today, and Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger got the offense started today and had it ended there for the New York Yankees. So he was absolutely dominant. Bellinger ripped his 8th double the season there that we saw. Lefty off of David Peterson. Impressive hitting by Belly, and that gave them the early 2-0 lead. So absolutely hate to see it. A horrendous start for this Mets team, but it's only 1 earned run charge on David Peterson because of the error there that we saw by and I apologize, Mark Vientos. Chair, thank you so much. Che Run, $10 haul. We got this. Look how bad the offense started last year and how it turned out. Pitching is better as well with Manai coming back in Montas. No, I 100% agree. It's not the end of the world by any stretch, but as a Mets fan, I'm allowed to have my initial reaction of being pretty pissed off about dropping 2 games out of 3 against the New York Yankees when there was natural hype, enticement, excitement, intrigue heading into this matchup, especially with Juan Soto returning to Yankee Stadium. And for Juan Soto to only have 1 hit this entire series, regardless of the fact that he got on base, like 7 times or so, it doesn't change the fact that it's still going to bother me, because I really would have loved to see Juan Soto do more than what he did throughout this 3-game set. And I know maybe I'm being too nitpicky on him, but at the same time, if you're paid $765 million, and if you're making $100 million alone in your first year gross there between the Mets' initial contract there of $55 million or $51 million and the signing bonus he's making at $49 million or so, yeah, I'm going to want him to produce as much as humanly possible in big matchups like this. I apologize for wanting such a thing. As we continue on, everybody, after the Cody Bellinger double, we wouldn't see anything else transpire there. That inning, a wild pitch by David Peterson would allow Belly to get to third, but thankfully Jason Dominguez did ground out, and that ended it there. But not before the Yankees take an early 2-0 lead in the first. In the second, Mark Vientos rips himself a single to lead off the inning after having a costly error half inning before. And I will say this is now the second time in the past week that a key Mets infielder had an error and then the half inning later got on base because of an error from the other guy or because of what we saw there in a single, because they actually labeled this a single there for Vientos on the soft ground ball. I thought that they were going to have that be an infield error. It was not, however. But regardless, Lindor, if you guys remember, I think it was the Pittsburgh Pirates series, had himself an error in one of those ball games, and then the half inning later, he got on base because of a throwing error by someone there in the infield. Either way, Mark Vientos gets on, everybody. Brandon Nimmo then, who was the mic'd up guy for the ball game, because God forbid ESPN just gave us a full 9 inning of work of normal broadcast. But you know, for guys that only cover baseball on select games throughout the season as is, they have to make sure that they have at least half the game with filler for talking to players, asking them how their pets are doing, their background, remembering their 3-for-5 game when they were playing in a Little League ball, you know, just everything that's so miscellaneous from the game itself there. Shout out to the broadcast for continuing to do an absolutely horrendous job. You got to love it. As we continue on from here, though, everybody, we would see in the second inning, Brandon Nimmo gets on with a walk. So there's 2 on, no out for the Mets. An easy opportunity, on paper at least, for the Mets to pounce and hopefully try to win this ball game, right? Hopefully at least get the lead back and go on from there. And no, what do we see, everybody? Starling Marte strikes out, and he's called out on strikes, which is very frustrating, him in the DH spot. Then we see Francisco Alvarez strike out swinging. So 2 big things. One, there was a blown call on the Marte at-bat especially, and then the Francisco Alvarez at-bat was just uninspiring. Alvarez strikes out swinging. That was not ideal at all. Setting the stage then for Jeff McNeil with 2 outs, lefty-lefty matchup against a lefty that he knows very well during his time with the Atlanta Braves and Max Fried. And McNeil wastes no time, rips the single up the middle. That drives in the Mets' first run of the ball game. Shout out to Jeff McRBI hits when no one else was stepping up. Jeff McNeil steps up with 2 out RBIs. That is what I like to see, baby. And hopefully that is a continued step in the right direction for Jeff, obviously, who's been fickle in what you're getting on the offensive output so far this season. Luis Angel Acuna, who did get the start today initially that we saw at second base, he shifted to third later on in this ball game for defensive lineman and after Vientos had his last at-bat. But Acuna comes in and he grounds out for the final out of the inning. In the second, we would see DJ LeMahieu lead off the inning with a single there that we saw on a ground ball to Francisco Lindor, and then nothing else happens. Thankfully, Austin Wells strikes out, a ground out on Oswald Peraza, and Mr. Paul Goldschmidt grounds out too. So David Peterson works around the leadoff runner and gets out of it unscathed, setting the stage on everybody for the top of the third. And at the top of the third, what do we see? We see Francisco Lindor line out after what was a nice catch by Aaron Judge. I did see John Boy go out of their way to post a side-by-side of Juan Soto not making a sliding catch in right field when it was similar to Aaron Judge's. You have the catch probability, and Juan Soto's fly ball there that he was trying to get from games ago this season was at a 22% rate, whereas Aaron Judge's was at a 70% rate. But it's okay. We're not going to provide context when it comes to trying to fit our narrative, being the petty pains in the asses that we're going to be. I digress. As we continue on from here, everybody, Juan Soto would be called out on strikes, and it was a disgustingly good curveball. You got to give credit where credit's due. Max Fried is an absolute dog, and that's why he ended heading into today's start with just over a 1-year run in the season out of the American League, everybody. I apologize, folks, for the sneeze. But Soto's caught on strikes. Beautiful curveball. Right the knees, right above the line. Soto should have been swinging there. I apologize, everybody. My goodness gracious. What just happened there? Allergies kicking my butt right now. Regardless, Juan Soto strikes out. A frustrating at-bat, but a great pitch by Fried. And then we see Alonso strike out swinging too. But what was really most frustrating about that was that many believe, including myself, that that wasn't a foul ball. That was in fact foul, that they were not going with, and that still goes in the Yankees' favor in this one as we then head to the bottom of third. So controversy early on there for Pete Alonso, as initially he did not think that that's what it was, and it was what it was. They label him the strikeout as we then head to the bottom of third. And in the bottom of third, everybody, Trent Grisham will be called out on strikes. We see Aaron Judge here, and I will see that Trent Grisham called out on strikes there, the initial strikeout. It was a ball just outside the zone that did go in David Peterson's favor. I'm not complaining about that, but I just want to make note of it there when I noticed that it's not a complete strike call, maybe just in the corner, but it went bottom right, and it was good placement there by Mr. David Peterson that we saw. The called strike was on the slider, and that was actually a bit, that was just below and off the zone, but, borderline call one way or the other. Cody Bellinger then gets on there with a 2-out walk, so Belly's on for the second time in 3 innings. Bellinger just torched the Mets today. There's nothing else to say about that. He killed us. And Anthony Volpe then strikes out swinging, folks. Huge strikeout there from David Peterson, and that strands him. As we get to the top of the fourth, Mark Vientos grounds out. Brandon Nimmo strikes out, and then Starling Marte with 2 outs to work with. 2 outs that he unfortunately is already facing, so there's only 1 out to work with. I apologize. Marte rips himself an opposite field double that we see down the first baseline. It was good quality contact, and I really liked how Marte sat there on that breaking ball. Good hitting there by Marte, setting the stage then for Francisco Alvarez. Francisco Alvarez, who unfortunately has a horrendous at-bat. Alvarez gets a changeup there for ball 1, and then he has a swinging strike, which is right down the pipe. He hacks one foul, and then he swings right through 97 heat, right down the pipe. It was middle, and Max Fried did have the velo working today. He was touching 97, 90 on the gun when that isn't as common for Fried, so you can tell he had a little bit more moxie going up against a New York Mets team that he obviously isn't a fan of during his long time with the Atlanta Braves, and now part of the Subway Series rivalry. But as we continue on from here, everybody, Alvarez strikes out, so we then head to the bottom of the fourth, and in the bottom of the fourth, we would see Jason Dominguez line out. DJ LeMahieu called down strikes, big strikeout there by David Peterson. And then Austin Wells flies out to Juan Soto, who makes a really nice catch in right field, shuts up all the bleacher creatures there in right, and doesn't toss a ball out because we all know what happened game 1. In case you guys don't know, I'll fill you in right now. Juan Soto tossed a ball out into the bleachers there in game 1 between the Mets and the Yankees, trying to, be, a nice guy and do all these things, and Yankees fans weren't having it. They actually threw the ball back at him, prompting Soto yesterday to then tease Yankee fans and pretend to throw in their direction, but then keep it himself. After he made that catch today, which was a really nice catch that he honestly felt like he just threw the glove up because he was a little behind running for where the catch was, but a big catch nonetheless, and then he just slowly tosses the ball up to himself there, looking at the crowd, and that does it there for the inning. In the top of the fifth, we would see Jeff McNeil get on with a leadoff walk, so McNeil is on, and that leadoff walk would be vital to the Mets in this inning, and I'll explain here why right now, because Acuna grounds out, Lindora grounds out, but then somehow, someway, everybody, absolute masterclass of base running by Jeff McNeil, because, mind you, starts at first, but back-to-back groundouts move him from first to third. Then we see a wild pitch, and Jeff McNeil absolutely bolts. Head first dive there to home. He's safe with ease. The Mets tie the ball game 2-2. So first he's Jeff McHits with the RBIs and 2 outs. Now he's Jeff McStealing home, basically. Tied ball game 2-2. Shout out to Jeff McNeil. Fantastic turn of events there that initially tied the ball game. But then Juan Soto, another key at bat, trying to keep the inning going. And what does Juan Soto do? He strikes out swinging on the sinker. As we then get to the bottom of the fifth, Oswald Peraza, I should say, not Oswaldo. Oswald Peraza pops out. Paul Goldschmidt gets on with a walk. Trent Grisham grounds out. Aaron Judge was intentionally walked, which made sense. Belly was intentionally walked, and thankfully Anthony Volpe grounded out. So David Peterson, who worked big time around the key hitters there in the lineup, and Judge and Belly back-to-back there for the New York Yankees, wanted to face the more vulnerable Anthony Volpe, and Anthony Volpe did a fantastic job at being horrendous in clutch situations in this ballgame for the New York Yankees, because he had prime opportunities to hit with runners to scoring position. This happened in the fifth, and then it happened yet again that we saw in the seventh with Huascar Brosman, and both times it didn't go in Volpe's favor, but rather the Mets. And the sixth, they go down in order, because of course they do. Alonso, Vientos, Nimmo, they're out of here. And the bottom of six, everybody, we would see Jason Dominguez fly out, DJ LeMahieu fly out, and Austin Wells ground out. That will then do it, everybody, for David Pearson's final line. Can we please appreciate something that was a positive today, outside of what was otherwise a big negative? And let's just take a moment here to talk about what stood out so much for David Peterson. David Peterson, what a start for David Peterson. Seriously, this is going to get overlooked because of the fact that the Mets lost in horrendous fashion in this Subway Series. But let's take a moment here to talk about it, everybody. And everybody watching live on a replay, thank you so much for smashing that like and subscribe button as you first chime in. I greatly appreciate that. Again, thank you kindly for being in here. It really does mean a lot. And one, when it comes to people trolling, it's okay as long as they're not taking things too unbelievably far. I know we're going to have Yankee fans chiming in the chat, and acting the way that they do. I don't completely mind that, because again, we have to take it on the chin right now as Mets fans, especially if we were talking any smack heading into the series, which I certainly was to a degree, more so just on the fact that we have Juan Soto. So again, these are the things that we have to deal with at times. But David Peterson is something that the Yankees had to deal with, and they did not fare all that well. We walked 8+ batters tonight. That was the Mets' demise. That and absolutely horrendous fundamental baseball goes without saying. But David Peterson giving the Mets 6 innings, a 3-hit, 1 earned run, 4 walk, 4 strikeout baseball at 101 pitches is pretty darn good. He now drops his season ERA to a strong 2.86, and I'm giving David Peterson a rock solid 7 out of 10 out of an outing like this today, maybe even 7.5. Because while I don't love the walks, and that's usually something that I discourage, that I'm discouraged from seeing, disheartened rather, Peterson did a fantastic job on throwing off the levels there of both the righty and lefty batters there for the Yankees. And just looking at these back-to-back strikeouts now, going down and away on a guy like Grisham, and then up and away there on the right-handed batter is just brilliant work by Peterson. I love the way that he utilized his arsenal today. And specifically on his arsenal, everybody, let me tell you just real quick what exactly was happening there, because we saw of all the pitches that Peterson threw, he had the sinker, the slider, the four-seam, the change, and the curveball. The sinker he threw 31% of the time and topped out right around 93, sat 91. He's actually a little down in the velo across everything for the most part today, except the curveball. The slider at 27%, topped out 86, sat right around 85. The four-seam at 15%, topped out at 94, sat 92. Changeup at 14%, topped out 86, sat right around 84. And the curveball at 4%, topped out 82 and sat right around 79. So yeah, again, guys, I'm going to give David Peterson a solid 7 at least out of 10. And I would love to hear your guys' grades in the chat, in the comments down below. What would you guys grade David Peterson's final line here by a final score again out of 1 to 10. An absolute shame that a stellar start like this was wasted, because it would have been great to see him get the W and the Mets get the W in the Bronx. But instead, the Mets drop a Subway Series matchup against the Yankees for the first time in a hot minute. I don't think they've lost a series to the Yankees in the Subway Series since like early in the 2023 season, if anything. They've fared really well against the Yankees the past number of years. So I really don't know when was the last time that they dropped 2. Not 2 out of 3, because in previous years we were only playing 2-game series, but the last time that we lost a series in general against them, I'm curious. Dan's going with the 6.5 grade. Let's see. Rebecca, how we doing? Wardy's going with 6.5. PB9 in the chat is going with a 7. Okay, so I think we're all around the same wavelength there, everybody. So as we head back to the main slide, let's continue to break down this ball game. Let me get my camera focused up for you guys just for 1 second. There we go. Bing, bang, boom. You'll love to see it. But as we continue on, everybody, we now get to the 7th inning. And the 7th inning, here comes Jonathan Wazga. The same Jonathan Wazga who blew the Mets' doors off in his season debut, coming back from injury there that we saw in Game 1 of the series. And what bothered me most was the fact that the Mets did actually pursue Jonathan Wazga this past offseason, but naturally he was inclined to go back to the Yankees unless the Yankees really were giving him an offer that was just an insult to him. That wasn't the case. So he goes back to the Yankees, and a shame it happened, because he strikes out Brett Beatty, who comes in the ball game here to bat for Starling Marte. Beatty was called off the bench and just didn't stand a chance. Alvarez strikes out Sweden because, again, Wazga's throwing gas, and Alvy just can't handle it at all. McNeil gets on with a 2-out walk because he's a dog. McNeil has an RBI single today. He has a run scored there on a wild pitch and gets on with a walk. Jeff McNeil's without question our hitter of the day. The only reason why I don't have a special slide for him today is because as I was making it, Alonso botched his throw and everything unraveled in the 8th, and I literally just deleted my template. I'm like, I'm not doing this shit right now. I'm pissed off. I don't see how this is going to end well for us to emphasize more personal player spotlights, so maybe I will tomorrow in a video, but regardless, not happy about that. McNeil gets on with a walk. Acuna then gets on with fielder's choice that we see, and Lindor lines out then, unfortunately, to end the inning. In the bottom of the 7th, we would see Ben Rice ground out after Huascar Brosnan comes in. Paul Goldschmidt ground out, everybody, and then here is where the stress factor continues. It's 2 outs. All Huascar Brosnan needs is one more measly effing out, and instead he has to walk Trent Grisham and Aaron Judge. Setting the stage then for Cody Bellinger, who then gets on with a single. Somehow, some way, Bellinger rips a single that does not allow these runners here to score. Then we see everybody, and mind you, the Bellinger single was because it was a dribbler there in the infield. Huascar Brosnan bolted to make the scoop and to try to get the tag at first base. He did not get there in time. Thankfully, Huascar was okay because he and Alonso initially collided. Alonso was fine too. Everyone fine, but Belly was safe. Bases loaded, 2 outs after Huascar Brosnan started the inning so brilliantly with a quick couple outs. And then we see everybody sets the stage yet again for Anthony Volpe. And what happens? Huascar Brosnan starts the count 3-0. Like, this is such bulldog mentality, it's insane. He starts the count 3-0, and he knows Anthony Volpe isn't a good hitter, right? So he knows, let me approach Anthony Volpe up and in. Let's spam him up and in a little bit. We're going to get him to sort up some swings. And Volpe does, because he bites it right away. Because when you're throwing 97-plus gas, it's not easy to necessarily pick up. So after a couple, then he drops one down a little bit below the zone. Sayonara, you're out of here. Big celebration by Huascar Brosnan, rightfully so. If only that was the 9th inning and we were heading into extras then, because that would have been more warranted than the end of the 7th inning. But Huascar Brosnan escapes his own mess there, and he now on the season has what ERA? Oh my goodness gracious. Brazo, what are you at now, my guy? Huascar Brosnan is now at a ERA of 0.98 this season. And for context, Brosnan has pitched in 21 games and 27.2 innings. He has a .8 whip, everybody. He's absolutely absurd, and I don't want to hear any nonsense from people that are like, oh, I never talk smack on Huascar Brosnan. We had a lot of people talking smack on Brazo last year. A lot of people did, because he did not perform great when he came over from the Marlins initially via trade, and then obviously he wasn't necessarily a stud right away in playoffs either, so Mets fans weren't loving what they saw from Brosnan, but I had the endless faith in him, and I said in spring training, you guys can go watch my clips from months ago. You will know it's true if you've been following. Brosnan has all the potential in the world to be one of the best reliever options for the Mets this season. I firmly believe heading into the year that he would be that, finally having a normal spring training, no visa issues for the first time in his MLB career there, at the young age now of 35, mind you. Endless potential with Brosnan, who is looking absolutely sexy. If you look at his Baseball Savant page right now, it is just chef's kiss. But Huascar Brosnan, everybody, I would love to know your thoughts about Brazo, because he, McNeil, and Peterson, as you guys are saying in the chat, were the standouts. That's absolutely true. We see Mario with the $5. Mario states, it's going to suck for me at work, especially when Yank fans come to City to watch, and now it's going to be unbearable. Yeah, it's not ideal at all, and I do not envy any of my fellow Mets fans that have to go into a work environment, a living space, just your commute, what have you, where you were constantly around Yankee fans. It's going to be insufferable for the next number of days, because mind you, let's not forget, this is going to be the World Series. And I'm saying that because that's exactly the same shit that they will say anytime that we win a series. So we have to match them on that front, because they're going to be what they're going to be. Playing somebody that's injured is bad for business. I don't think Mendoza is that dumb. Eamon, what are we talking about in the chat? I guess I missed there what the back and forth was, but Brosnan was fantastic. Unfortunately, the Mets did not get anything else going here on the offensive end, because in the 8th inning, everybody, this was the Mets' true demise. We would see Juan Soto ground out, Pete Alonso line out, and Mark Vientos strikes out on a foul tip, and that does it for the top of the 8th. In the bottom of the 8th, here comes Tyrone Taylor replacing Mark Vientos. There we see Mr. McNeil get to second base. We see Acuna shift from second to third, and Tyrone Taylor is in center field for the remainder of the ball game. Ryan Stanek comes in, and Stanek's throwing gas, but sadly, Jason Dominguez, the young Martian, has a really good eye at the plate, and I have to say it was a quality at bat by him. It was 100 upstairs that Alvarez more than likely would have swung at, that Dominguez took without a problem for his base, and that leadoff walk would be a killer, because DJ LeMahieu does strike out, but then Austin Wells rips his 8th double this season, and just like that, there are now 2 runners on in scoring position for the Yankees with less than 2 out. Vivas, after grinding out an at-bat there, with Ryan Stanek. Stanek's throwing 101 inside. Vivas sawing him off constantly, right? That's a long at-bat. And then Vivas puts the ball in play, an easy play for Pete Alonso. And Pete Alonso, again, somehow, some way, I don't know if Lucas Duda was whispering in his ear. I don't know if literally the lights were too bright, as we would see a guy like, what's his face? Jared Allen, former Net and current Cavaliers, said after getting curb stomped by the Knicks a year or so ago, the lights were too bright, but I think the lights may have actually been too bright for Alonso Yankee Stadium, because otherwise, what the hell were you doing there? I can't sit here and really say to myself, oh, I wonder what Alonso was thinking, because it's more of a figure of speech than anything else, because you have split seconds to make that initial reaction like Alonso did there. And Alonso has been amazing for the Mets this season in so many ways, so I don't want this to be like an endless rag on him, but it goes without saying that if Alonso doesn't have that costly error that should have been an easy out at home, the Mets find themselves potentially getting out of this inning either unscathed or at least not down by a final effing score of 8-2. Because afterwards, everybody, we would see Paul Goldschmidt get on with a single that rips up the middle, and that makes it 4-2 Yanks. Then Hansis Cabrera comes in, the lefty. And what does the lefty do? He needs to get a key double play ball on Trent Grisham. What does he not do? Get Trent Grisham out. Grisham gets on with a walk. Aaron Judge, mind you, he somehow strikes out Aaron Judge. Him and Jake Diekman. Sign up, everybody. If you're a mediocre lefty, just get in at bat there against Aaron Judge in a high-pressure, high-spot situation, because you're going to strike his ass out. Yeah, no one's going to talk about it, because even though Aaron Judge was absolutely shit this entire series, the talk of the town is going to be Juan Soto, and the Mets looking absolutely foolish in this loss thanks to Alonso and everything that unraveled from here. Because then Hansis Cabrera gets in the lefty-lefty matchup you think would be a better matchup, but the problem is Cody Bellinger is swinging a hot effing bat. He was the hottest batter to face ace in the lineup, and that was a golden opportunity for him to pounce. He gets a pitch that's well too much over the heart of the plate that he absolutely smokes for his second home run of the series, this time a grand effing salami, his 7th home run of the year, and Cody Bellinger and the New York Yankees ultimately go on to win this game by a final score of 8-2. The Mets have uninspiring at-bats after Brandon Nimmo grinded it out for an eventual flyout for the first out. Beatty, Alvarez, they're done. That does it. Ball game. Yankees win this one 8-2, and they absolutely pissed me off for the next number of days. Even though we have a quick turnaround tomorrow, everybody, because the Mets play tomorrow, and we play the Red Sox in Boston. Oh, my goodness. Good news is that on paper, there's a lot more things to like in this matchup against the Red Sox than the Yankees. Certainly, especially on the front and potentially trying to get them to blow some things. And, you know, the Red Sox, like the Mets, have dropped a lot of tight ball games this year and have had frustrating moments with runners in scoring position. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on that front. And speaking of the Red Sox, we may actually have content dropping regarding the Boston Red Sox and a key player tomorrow on Wardy MLB. So be on the lookout for that. It should drop tomorrow, if not the following day, depending on how quick I am able to get to recording to it. And no, it is not intentional that I plan on doing that when they're playing the Mets. It was actually just unintentional because I forgot, like I just told you guys, that they're playing the Red Sox. So, you know, it's what it is. But regardless, check it out should you guys have interest, because we are absolutely booming on Wardy MLB right now. Latest video was on Trent Grisham, the schmuck, who thankfully didn't do anything in this series, so I hope I jinxed him a bit. But we got over 30,000 views there on our latest video on Wardy MLB, and I had a lot of fun breaking him down. Fascinating story this year, but he has cooled off, at least just from this past series alone. Asia, thank you so much for the $20 holla. If you guys don't know Asia is absolutely fantastic. She has actually been someone that's worked at Citi Field, and even though she's a Yankee fan, I love her. She's a great supporter and great member here. Hey, Wardy GG, how about your Knicks? Thank you for beating the Celtics. Now, please beat the Red Sox. As a Yankees fan, we will try to do that. I'm rooting for the Mets for my mom, as she was a diehard Mets fan. 3 months away since her passing. I know, my condolences once more, Asia. Again, it was great getting to meet you and obviously interact with her here on the platform too, because I know both you guys have followed here for the past number of years. I'm wishing you guys well a lot, and I'll be thinking of her too. And I hope, obviously, like you, that the Mets have themselves a run, not only for your mom, but for everyone that obviously has been impacted greatly by this Mets team. We just want to see the boys have a big year. We know they're going to have a big year, but today sucked. Today sucked. This series sucked. Because yesterday's game was uninspiring on the offense too. It wasn't like, oh, the Mets blew the doors open on the Yankees yesterday after the Yankees did it to the Mets in Game 1. No, the Yankees were clearly the better team in 2 games out of 3 in this series. Regardless of how the Mets had their mental errors, they still had their mental errors. And their mental errors were just simply too pronounced. Billy Dottie, Phillies breathing down our necks. Flush this. I 100% agree. Thank you for the donation. Again, that's what happens when you basically play 500 baseball for the past 2.5, 3 weeks now. Since the Mets curb stomped the Phillies, they've been playing fairly mediocre baseball, like 500 baseball, I should say. That's actually a fact. Since the Mets had their 7-0 homestand, they have not been able to get in the groove as consistently as we would have hoped for the most part. But guys, to talk more about this ball game in particular, let's get into the following. The Mets were 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position. As I mentioned, they left 5 on base, and their costly errors there we saw. Vientos already has 6 on the season, and Alonso has 2. Vientos has 6 on the season, and Lindor, I believe, has 7 now, which is insane. Actually insane. You know what? I'm going to double check right now, because Lindor, we saw that last Lindor error. What was it? What was the last time Lindor had an error? Was it Game 1 of this series, or was it against... Let me look up real quick. Okay. Hold on, everybody. I'm curious. Lindor stats. How many errors does Lindor have, everybody? Lindor has 9? No way. He really has 9 already? That's insane. I'm thinking at absolute worst, 7 or 8. No way he has 9 already. He has 7. Lindor has 7 errors this season, everybody. Lindor, guys, you know how many errors Lindor had last season? 12.
Medium. I was discussing about the errors on Lindor. Thank you, G-Money. I appreciate that. Thank you for giving me my train of thought back. Yeah, the defense hasn't been good for the Mets right now. And I think what frustrates me most is the fact that David Stearns, right before this series began, had a heavy emphasis in pregame saying how if there's one thing, if there's one area for the Mets that they need to work on, it is without question, going to be the defense. They need to do that right now. I'm at like a 4 right now. Okay, regardless, we're just rocking with the volume. We're good now. We're keeping it. Mike performing like Soto. I guess that's fitting, right, Brooklyn? I sign up too much for the Juan Soto experience. It's too literal. Try using sign language, Wardy. I can't do that. If I try doing that, then I'm going to throw up gain signs by accident. Let's see here. Asia, I did answer your donation from earlier. Again, thank you so much for that. Boston fans still hurting from the Knicks series. Absolutely. I answered both of them. And I am very happy that Boston fans are hurting right now as a Knicks fan. I'm not complaining about that. Is there a fielding lab? Unfortunately, the Mets don't have that one yet, and that is frustrating, everybody. But, folks, this is what I'm going to leave you with for my replay viewers, because we're going to continue on for the live show for another 10 minutes or so. But for people on replay, this is where we're going to cut things off now. So, guys, please let us know all your key takeaways in the comments down below from tonight's very frustrating 8-2 loss here against the New York Yankees. And please let me know again what you expect from the Mets going forward now, as they have a big series beginning right as soon as tomorrow against the Boston Red Sox. Everybody also be on the lookout, as I believe this Tuesday is when we're going to be doing our jersey giveaway. I think Tuesday makes more sense than tomorrow, especially with things hanging on such a low right now. Hoping that tomorrow's a high. If not, we'll still make the announcement for you guys to check out for Tuesday. But Tuesday, we will be doing a jersey giveaway in our live chat and our post-game show, regardless if the Mets win or lose or not. So be on the lookout for that. But for everyone that's watching live, we're going to continue on the live show to answer more of your comments, questions, and concerns. And everyone on replay, this is where we will cut things off. So thank you guys again for watching. I apologize for the rant. I realize that is not necessarily digestible for everybody, but I'm a frustrated Mets fan that has a lot to say. And we built a platform to 33,000+ in part because of exactly that. So thank you guys again, as always. No matter what, let's go Mets. Peace out.